Hello, today we are here to talk about my favorite nonfiction reads in 2021. These are roughly in order with the most impactful at the end. So, first up we have A Small Place by Jamaica Kincaid. This is a tiny collection of essays or thoughts on the author's home country of Antigua. She talks about tourism, imperialism, corruption, etc., racism. The writing in this is so beautiful, but obviously it is addressing very important and difficult things. I think this would be a great starter book for anyone who is not familiar with issues of tourism or colonization or anything like that. It is very bite-sized, so it would give you a good place to jump off from, or obviously it's great for anyone to read even if you are familiar with those issues. Next we have What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat by Aubrey Gordon. This is again a great book for anyone to read who is starting to be more aware of issues around anti-fat bias. Aubrey Gordon is one of the co-hosts of my absolute favorite podcast, Maintenance Phase. So I heard about this on the podcast and I didn't realize that she had a book until I heard that, and so I immediately listened to it. You have her personal experiences as a fat person and data behind the bias against fat people. I found this very informative, very moving, and think that everyone should read it. Next, we have From a Native Daughter by Haunani K. Trask. This is by a scholar and an activist in the movement for Hawaiian independence. She did pass away last year, so a lot of people were sharing her work and this book, and so I picked it up. This is again a collection of essays and speeches that she has written. I did not know a lot about the colonization of Hawaii going into this, and she does talk about the history, how exactly the US took over Hawaii, the way that the rights and sovereignty of the Hawaiian people were stripped away. Another one that talks a lot about the tourism industry and the harm that that has on Hawaii, both as a physical place and the people who actually live there, particularly those who that is their ancestral lands. Additionally, she talks some about higher education and the type of environment that that is for Indigenous people. This is a very approachable and educational read. My top two are kind of tied, but we are going to put Pedagogy of the Oppressed in the number 2 spot. This is by a Brazilian academic in the 1970s, and as you can see from my tabs, I found this to be one of the most impactful books I have ever read. As you can tell probably from the title, this is an academic text about teaching oppressed people basically to break them free of the mental captivity that they are in. In his context, the oppressed would be almost everybody. It would be everybody except the elites. But most of the chapters in this are actually just about the nature of oppression and how that mentally changes the people who are not part of the ruling class. He talks about a lot of the tricks that the oppressors use to convince you that, for example, if you are a middle class person, that you are not oppressed, that you are above working class people, and that working class people actually are lazy and they deserve their lower class status, and just all kinds of things that reading this you would be 100% convinced that you are reading about the US in 2021, but nope. Apparently capitalist societies and oppressive societies have always worked the same way, so it's all still very relevant now. There are some caveats that I have for this book, the first of which is that it ignores issues of race and gender and other forms of intersectionality entirely. I think that it was the perspective that if you solved class issues, you would solve all issues, which we obviously know is not the case. So obviously there are many layers that are missing in this, but I do think from a class perspective, this was revolutionary for me, and I think would be revolutionary for many people. Also, this is not easy to read at all. It is a very, very academic text. Particularly, I believe it's chapter 3. I had no idea what he was talking about for significant portions of the chapter, but in general, I do think that this is readable. It's just, it's not a very long book, and it took me a long time to read because it is so academic. Our final book, our top dog, is Decolonizing Methodologies. This is written by an Indigenous professor in New Zealand, and it is all about research and Indigenous peoples. This was the first of these 5 books that I read, and I have found this to be absolutely foundational to the kind of changing of my thought processes regarding progress and Western thought versus Indigenous thought over the past few years. I started this in 2020 and finished in 2021. By the way, I did read this first as an ebook, otherwise this would be full of tabs as well. I do want to reread it. The first half of this book was the most impactful for me because it is kind of setting the stage for all of this. As in this book, I think she recognized that there would be a lot of foundation that her readers would need. The second half is her ideas and projects that she has seen in action to actually bring together Indigenous people and Indigenous thought into research and make it an Indigenous focused project instead of Westerners kind of placing their own agenda on it. That is not as relevant to me because I don't do research, but the beginning, so the first chapter is imperialism, history, writing, and theory. The second chapter is research through imperial eyes. Third is colonizing knowledges. Fourth is research adventures on Indigenous lands. And then 5 is notes from down under. So those chapters completely revolutionize my understanding of Western perspectives even, as well as the alternatives to those. The major themes of this are appropriation of Indigenous ideas by Westerners, particularly researchers, Western versus Indigenous thoughts, technologies, mentalities, etc. How science, kind of the research and systems that we have in place as the structure of science, has weaponized Western ideology against Indigenous peoples and Indigenous culture. For example, she talks about Western ideas of space and time. Colonizing the ideas of space allowed the idea that, of course, we will alter landscapes to be exactly what we need them to be instead of taking ourselves to the landscape that we need. There is an entire wealth of knowledge in this book. I cannot recommend it enough. I think that everyone should read it, especially anyone involved in science, education, history, sociology, anything related to the studies of people or places or things, language as well. Yes, this is my top recommendation. Close second, but this takes the cake. Read it. So let me know if you have read any of these, what you thought, and if you have any favorites from 2021, leave them in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.